to the 9/11 War Room, a weekly roundtable discussion that takes place every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Tune in at 911warroom.com.
Welcome to 9/11 War Room. My name is Gene.
My name is Sandra. Today is Sunday, November 30th, and we have episode 211.
Kristen Gasparini joins us. She's going to go through her plan on outlook on how she thinks it's a good idea to progress in the 9/11 truth movement. Would love to hear any action on that. But before we get to that, we'll get through a couple of headlines, news items. Is that all right, Kristen? You pinched for time or anything? Nope.
No,
Okay.
not at all. Not at all.
Sweet. So let's get going. Corporate level news. We reported on this last week. This is from AM New York. We need to know who lied. Firefighters Union demands answers after 68 boxes related to 9/11 toxins discovered in city agency facility. So the Firefighters Union is piping mad on this. I'll do a little reading here. It says, "We need to know who lied," Ansbro said Monday, adding that effort to discover documents date back to the de Blasio administration. "We really need to know who kept this lie alive by hiding all the information we've been asking for." Goes on to say, Ansbro said Monday that 9/11 Health Watch and the Uniformed Firefighters Association have so far received and reviewed 24 of the boxes, with the remaining 44 boxes yet to be released. The released boxes, Ansbro said, contain data related to the toxins in the air following the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center. He is now demanding accountability for anyone involved in the alleged effort to hide the documents in a city facility. He says, everyone that was exposed, they need to know. Their families need to know who lied to them. They need to be held accountable. He also said first responders in the city deserve to know that the city will be transparent about future emergencies. These boxes will be open, the evidence will be found, and we're going to find out exactly who lied to us back then. And lastly, it says, since the 9/11 attacks, nearly 400 New York firefighters have died from illnesses linked to the toxins produced by the attacks. So this is great that the Firefighters Union is getting involved in this as well. That's all on corporate level news. More on the 9/11 truth movement level news. Some of you may have gotten this alert. Filing fee for a landmark 9/11 UK Supreme Court case. This is Matt Campbell and the Campbell family fighting for Geoff Campbell. They have a foot in the door with something here. They're not going to be presenting the evidence for the controlled demolition, but what they are fighting is to tackle precedent for the AG, Attorney General, having too much overreach and saying that you can't go down this rabbit hole or you can't go down this line of questioning. So they're going to take it to the Supreme Court, putting him in check, and they're asking for about 7,800 pounds, which works out about $10,000 US. We donated what we could. If you guys can, please. They have 3 days left, 41% there. So please support the Campbell family on that. The IC also did a write-up on it. And on that page, which I'll share in the show notes, you'll be able to see what Matt Campbell gave his presentation at the Turning the Tide event 2025. You can see it down there at the bottom of the page. And another link that I'll provide, if anybody doesn't know the Matt Campbell, the story about Geoff Campbell, his brother, on the initiatives page at ic911.org, they link back to the unspeakable. This is a documentary that was put out by AE 9/11 Truth, and it covers a few of the family members: Bob McIlvaine, Frank DeMartini's friend. I'm drawing a blank right now. That's terrible.
I mean, it's
Bill Bernier,
Yeah.
and a couple other people,
Yeah.
including Matt talking about his brother Geoff. So check it out, The Unspeakable, really good. It's not the technical details like you're used to in Experts Speak Out or Blueprint for Truth. This AE tried to put out more of touching the heartstrings, so it is a really good documentary. Check it out if you can. And Matt also put out a post about it with an article to an organization, the Doughty Street Supreme Court to consider limits of judicial review in 9/11 Inquest case. So I will share that also. You guys could read all those articles. Also, the IC is planning for the 3rd annual David Ray Griffin lecture. They have the first 2 out already. If you haven't seen them, the first annual one was The Ruthless Empire Post 9/11. The second annual one was My Post 9/11 Awakening, A Path to Self-Liberation and Unity, that was led by Madhava Sethi. And the third one is going to be...
Well, if you want to pull it up in the emails, I just sent you the banner for it that we're probably running with. It's going to be 2 weeks from today. I believe, was it 1 p.m. Eastern. It's live from the via the UK column, so 6 to 8 p.m. UK. It's going to be Richard Ellifritz presenting. He did his thesis on the 9/11 Truth Movement years ago, and he will be presenting his research, if you want to call it that, his findings on how the truth movement has evolved over the years from its original inceptions, the ups and downs, and the the many things we've seen happen over the years. So Jason Burmis will be part of it. And James Corbett, they will be speaking. They'll be part of the panel. So Richard Ellifritz will give his presentation with all his findings, and then there's going to be a panel that'll include Jason Burmis, James Corbett, for the folks that have been here for a long time. I guess I'm the in-between, and Madhava Sethi, who has become very outspoken on the subject in the last few years as well. So it'll be live streamed. You're welcome to join. That's what it's called, 9/11 Truth Today, where we are now.
All right. Thank you. And let me see what else I have here. I think that was that. Boston 9/11 Truth had Bob Runyon on last week. You can catch that at rumble.com/Boston 9/11 Truth.
Maybe Sue and I'll want to speak to that for a second.
Sue or Al?
Yeah, it was quite different than his previous presentation. Much more mainstream with not the mainstream narrative, but mainstream with 9/11 truthers, and more unity. So do check it out. I thought it was pretty good.
Thank you. And that's for the end of the show. Okay. Let's turn it over to...
there was tap at
Karl
Schwarz on.
Sorry. Truth Action Project. You can get to that at truthactionproject.org. They have Karl Schwarz on. I still cannot find the videos. If anybody is Mike, I tried BitChute, YouTube, Rumble. I can't find these videos. I don't know where you guys have them.
Well, we didn't get it put up till about 3 a.m. JB worked very hard into the middle of the night 2 nights ago. So go back onto our Rumble, and it's the one with the lesser membership, lesser subscribers. I forget which one it is, but we're cleaning house. We got to get rid of a couple duplications. So, but it's up. We've been sending it out.
Cool. Excellent. I'm getting there. There it is. Tap Talk with Karl Schwarz. I'll put that link in the show notes. Thank you, Mike. And this was discussing they got into pre 9/11, how things were happening and starting to happen pre 9/11, and then as 9/11 was starting to happen, the things he was observing. So check it out.
Yeah, he was there pretty much from the beginning. Craig's got his teleconference coming up on Wednesday also. So that Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Anything you want to add to that, Craig?
Just John's on the call and he's going to be speaking. So if John, if you want to say a word or two about what you're going to be talking about, you'd probably do a better job than I would. So it'll be John.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the plug.
Yeah. Why don't you tell
them what the
general topic's going to be?
Well, the topic is, why did 5 state of Mainers conspire to overthrow the Queen of Hawaii and create the fake annexation, which never happened, and why it's claimed today that Hawaii is a state of the United States instead of the independent country, which not only myself, but I'm kind of not a spokesperson, but a megaphone for the researchers being done in Hawaii, which has also been confirmed by the National Lawyers Guild and the International Association of Democratic Lawyers that the monarchy, the original Kingdom of Hawaii, remains intact, but the government had been overthrown. Just like at the end of World War II, they didn't destroy the country of Japan and Germany, but the government had to be reorganized. Similar kind of thing. That's very brief, but I'll go into it in more depth on the talk. Any questions now?
John, do you have your book handy to hold up?
Yes, I can. Yeah, I can grab one. Give me about a minute so you can go on to somebody else, and I'll hold it up when I see it. It's called Liberate Hawaii, and I'll go find one.
Yeah, I read it. It's quite good.
I think I have it right here. And then we'll go on to Kristen. Here it is. You can get to liberateHawaiiTheBook.com. And that's what it looks like right there. And very good. Nice. John's writing books. All right. So our next guest, well, we normally don't have guests. We have people coming to the table to talk about the action, 9/11 truth, news, strategy, and activism. And Kristen's been doing that. She put out this video. Some of you may remember her. I'm not sure if it's the only one, but this is called The Caves. If you haven't seen this music video, really good. Thank you for putting that out there, Kristen. And what we're going to talk about, she put out an article called Hacking the Propaganda System, Uniting and Conquering the Abuse. And one thing I really appreciate about this article, down at the bottom, she puts a list of all these people that we should be reaching out to, which we've already reached out. Am I saying that right? Anyway, we reached out to a whole bunch of them already, but this is a great list. So it's just fantastic that you put this out. So it's all yours, Kristen.
Thank you so much for having me. So where to begin? So I put out the article, and it was shared a little bit. Thank you, Richard, for sharing it. Thank you, Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, for having me on the Dawn of Truth event. I guess what I've had. So let me first explain what it is about for people who don't know. So basically, I spent, since entering college and finding out what our world is about, really, I've just thought of what is the most efficient way to break through the problem of echo chambers and propaganda, which, even when we are aware collectively that something's wrong and that we're not being told the truth, because we're constantly pit against each other and trapped in echo chambers and distracted, we're not able to coalesce, to come together, to work on a specific point of focus. And so the antidote to attention scattering, which is the game that the powerful entities are playing with everything that goes on in the world, is attention focus. And to focus this attention, playing a game where essentially we can only see our cards, being, the populace, whereas our overlords can see our cards, their cards and our cards, because we are in a almost complete surveillance system. Like, we should always assume that our communications are surveilled, et cetera, et cetera. How do we win that game? We have to rely on networks of trust and communication and break through those artificial barriers that are there for no particular reason, really, just because we are told that we should be enemies, so to speak, where, point people who have audiences on the right won't talk and discuss points through with point people who have audiences on the left. Not that right and left have any particular meaning anymore. But if we can break through those walls and focus mass attention on something that is very easy to understand, the focus here would be World Trade Center 7, as opposed to COVID, which I think has more people concerned, but it's a lot harder to analyze all of the data around biology, microbiology, vaccines, etc. It's just so daunting. And even the Epstein case, which now is gaining a lot of traction, Whitney Webb is really the person who's doing all of the work to map out the power network behind what Jeffrey Epstein was actually doing with the blackmailing. And that absolutely ties into 9/11. At this particular time, I wouldn't be able to explain exactly how, but it's all tied together. And so, what we need is just something that is very directly. It's immediate for people to see. The way that Building 7 falls is it's just easier. All of the research is in place as done by architects and engineers. So if we all focus on that, but in the way that we tell this to people, tell them how this connects to the Jeffrey Epstein case, the COVID case, climate change, or use, so some people are very put off by certain terminology, but you know that certain terminology will reach different groups of people, and different groups of people will have that as their main point of concern. So you have to actually go forward and use the language that is going to reach the group of people that we want to unite, so that they can see clearly why it is that we're proposing this point. So, for example, if you want to stop climate change, the United States military and the wars all over the world are the primary polluters in terms of CO2, but also in terms of environmental destruction. So if you want to get to the military apparatus, which is, I think, what we should all get to, even if we want to defeat COVID, for example, the COVID dossier, Sasha Latipova and Debbie Lerman very clearly described how the response to COVID actually came from intelligence agencies and national security agencies. And so that's a way in which the military would still be involved in a crisis that we were told, it was natural, of natural causes, etc. So to sort of get to the bottom line where we neutralize the element that is most immediately capable of defeating us through the exercise of violence, whether it's the deployment of police against civilians, or whether it's, the distraction from everything that's happening through invading Venezuela or what have you. We have to get to the military system first. Building 7 is the element that most readily undoes the narrative that keeps the legitimacy of the military apparatus intact as it stands. So this is overall the plan. So then what we should do to get the plan rolling is to establish these links between people that have large audiences. And there is a list of people, as Jean said at the bottom of the article. My issue at the moment is that I have a job. I'm trying to do too many things at once. I am often stretched for time and energy, and I'm trying my very, very best to reach out to the people I can. Richard was very, very kind in putting me in contact, for example, with Piers Robinson, who is one of the coordinators at the Center for Propaganda Studies. And then John Olson put me in contact with Margaret Anna Alice, who has direct contact with Debbie Lerman and Sasha Latipova. So where I am right now is that I reached out to Richard and Ted Walter and Piers Robinson, who weren't very convinced of the proposal that I'd be put in contact, or sort of this sort of situation would happen more often, but not just within the group of people that are already used to hearing about 9/11. We have to expand that outwards. But so we need some point people that can sort of vouch for the validity of the idea, and then would come sort of on a joint call. And I think starting with 9/11 and COVID is very useful, because the nexus there is very, very strong. But eventually I'm also trying to reach out to friends that I have in the American left, so to speak, but in general with people who have large audiences and who are talking about setting ourselves free from systems of abusive power. So where are we standing now? We're standing at a point where I am trying to reach out to people. I've reached out to James Corbett. He's very busy. I don't think he's even seen my email, for example. I'm waiting to hear back from Lerman and Latipova. Piers Robinson, Ted Walter, and Richard, we've been communicating on and off, but they said, why don't you create an advert? And I'm a bit out of sorts with regards to that, because for my face to be on the advert, I'd have to sort of act in a very bubbly way and like explain it, which I could bring myself to do, like if I really had to. But I just wonder whether that would be the most efficacious way to do it, in that I don't have a large audience yet. I'm trying to build that through my music, through other sources. It's very difficult to understand it as a musician, whether it's useful for music career to like mix everything together. I should probably like do two completely separate things, but then it's like, half energy here, half energy there. It just feels like a little bit of like bleeding out. Oh yeah, sorry.
All good. It's 5:20. It's a time when World Trade Center 7 fell. This time in September 11th, 2001, and we just use this as an opportunity to say a prayer for justice. And we do this every day. I set an alarm, everybody, and it only takes a few seconds or a few minutes or however much you want. But I just want to pause for a few seconds for a quick prayer. If everyone join me. Lord, come to you right now. I thank you so much for all of these hearts and minds that continue to push for 9/11 truth. We humbly walk forward in this endeavor. We just looking for justice, just ask for prayers of protection and guidance and wisdom, Lord, that we would see it in our lifetime. But ultimately, we just place faith in you that things are working for the good, and that hearts and minds will continue to be turned for justice. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to also add a lot of there's people in the 9/11 truth movement. They're the purists who say we just talk about 9/11. That's all we talk about, and that's fine. I respect that too. But there's also folks in the 9/11 truth movement that are like, we need to build bridges. TAP is most notably known for that, reaching out on any and every subject where they can make these bridges between different topics. Richard's done that a little bit too. And there are even a few people, but there's the purists like Al. He just wants to stick to 9/11. Although when you talk about war, Al will talk about war too with 9/11. So I think it's an interesting avenue.
So just to conclude, so basically, we'd have to find a way to be efficient in that people who already have audiences can reach their audiences directly. Because of what James Corbett talked about also in Dawn of Truth, when new activists are trying to start channels about important information such as this, oftentimes they're just shadow banned and they don't even know why their content isn't reaching people. So for a lot of people, it's just an immense waste of time and energy with no assurances that it would actually reach the right people anyways, which is why either way, we really need to build that that network of people who understand the plan and who are sharing sort of like the content with each other at first. So one thing that I was proposing, or that I would like help with, if anybody here can and wants to help, is to think of contacts of people who have like large audiences, or people who know people, share the plan, and then ideally, in a way that it's much better than what I've done today, because today was like a very, very summary explanation of what the plan is. If you would like, I can go more in depth, but I didn't want to take too much time out of this specific meeting if it's not allowed, or you can tell me, I can go in more detail. But basically organize calls where I can explain the plan, and then these calls are also an opportunity for Q&A so that feedback can be given directly. And this is basically what it is, though. Like, it's just people talking to each other and sharing perspectives on how potentially everybody focusing on Building 7 could bring about forcing 9/11 as an issue into mainstream consciousness for good. Like, what we want is just to have this be unavoidable into mainstream discourse. Once that happens, then everybody will be forced to reckon with what it means for the entire military to be captured, and what effects this has on Palestine, Congo, all these issues that are very dear to, you know, progressives, but also what it means for taxes and, you know, caring for American interests if you're more conservative and if you're thinking, right, where is all our money going and why is there a 21 plus trillion-dollar black hole of finances that we don't know where it goes, and it's all a mess. So this is something that interests everybody. Building 7 can bring it all into focus, I think, no matter what the issue is, because it all boils back to the military industrial complex and the intelligence complex, which are corrupt. And this would begin to unravel that. So then, yes, please, just any ideas and any contacts, any connections that you could help with. And then I would do the legwork of still reaching out to people. My issue is that nobody knows who I am. So if I have just someone in the middle who can vouch for the plan making sense, like the plan makes sense, then people can just do this on their own, basically. But as long if I have to, if I can explain it, if I can make all of these connections apparent, I'm very happy to do that as well.
Nice.
So
go ahead, Sandra.
No, I was just going to say JB has his hand up, so I guess he has a question or a comment. Go ahead, JB.
Yes, thank you for your input. What kind of feedback did you get from your skeptical university instructors regarding the studies of Professor Halsey in the University of Alaska on World Trade Center Building 7? Thank you.
Oh, thank you for your question. So this is prior to this plan. So this plan came after my university time. I wrote this past year. But when I was in Wellesley College, the professors really were just avoidant. Like the biggest confrontation I had was with the professor who taught the entire course on the world on terror, on the war of the entire course on the war on terror. And he deleted one of my posts on the class website. So just, you know, where we submit our homework, he deleted my homework that was available for other students to see without an explanation. And he said that the source was not acceptable, that the source was anti-Semitic. I think I had posted something about Michelle Chosudovsky explaining why we hadn't left Afghanistan after 16 plus years and why the opium production had increased tenfold since the invasion in 2001. Couldn't talk about that. And then when I asked this professor how many towers collapsed completely at Ground Zero on 9/11, he refused to answer and said that the question was malicious and that I should leave his class and that if I didn't shut up, basically, he would lower my grade.
Wow.
So then I had to go to the dean, and the dean basically said, yeah, he contacted me first and he can do whatever he wants. So you can either leave his class or take the course credit non, which I did. So then he couldn't fail me because I passed. But yeah, I just didn't get a grade for that class. And then another thing I did was that I interviewed the physics department at Wellesley College. So there were 8 physics professors, and I went with a pretext that I was doing a electronic music project, which I was, and I showed them the video and I recorded their answer. I was saying, I'll show you a video and then I record your answer. What, in your opinion, what with your knowledge of like physics and Newtonian mechanics is the most likely cause of the collapse of this building? And one refused to answer and got really flustered and was just like, I'm not going to answer this question. And then the other 7 answered on the lines of either there was a bomb, detonations at the base of the building, demolition, but none of them, 0% of them knew what they were looking at. And so then when I told them, a few were like, holy shit. And then another few were like, oh no, then it's just fires. But I have those recordings still.
That's
I think
amazing.
if I were to use them, they'd probably sue me. So I probably can't use those recordings, but I have them in my phone.
Fuzz out their faces, and yeah, that's a good meme or something.
No, it's just audio.
Oh,
it's
is
just
it? Okay.
audio.
That'd be good. Anybody else? Thoughts, questions? What do you think of this plan? I think it's a great plan because of all the subjects that we've talked about, or that get talked about as far as conspiracies. I think 9/11 is the loosest thread. And of 9/11, the loosest thread, in my opinion, is Building 7. Because you just can't see it and go, oh, that's just fire. No, it doesn't make any sense at all. So, Al, go ahead.
James is raising his hand.
You want me to go?
Go
Yeah,
ahead,
go ahead, Al.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I was just curious as to the interview that you questionnaire you put out. Did you use that? And what any reaction from it from the various members of our group?
Pardon, can you repeat the question? Which interview? Sorry.
Well, you asked us to fill out a questionnaire about how we got involved in 9/11 and who we are, and I think we're.
I think you're thinking of.
Yeah, you're thinking of Richard Ellifritz. That was that. Yes, Al. We had Richard Ellifritz on. If it wasn't, I think it was 2 weeks ago. He came on specifically because of this David Ray Griffin talk that he's presenting on December 14th. And it's a look back on 25 years of activism. And he was asking us for our input or our views on how the movement had evolved over the years, if that's what you're referring to. That had nothing to do with.
Maybe, but I almost swear that Kristen had sent us something that she wanted us to fill out, which I did. Anyway, I may have it totally wrong, but it was a while ago.
Oh, a while ago, maybe.
Corona.
Maybe Davina.
Did you ever put
But it was part of a paper she was doing, or a presentation.
So I wrote the paper. The paper is what Jean was sharing earlier on the screen share. It's on Substack. You can access it on there, and it's open to commenting, and I think I have like a comment and chat section, which would be really useful if everybody wants to just use that chat to suggest things or write comments on there. That would be really, really useful. But yeah, so the whole complete plan is now published.
I think Jean put the link in the chat also. If you okay, Al? With
yeah, no, I more than likely I got them confused, but
if it was months ago, maybe it was something along those lines. I thought you were referring to the last couple of weeks.
No,
we did ask for something that sounds like what you were saying.
Maybe I asked for people to add people to the list. So I made my own list of people, but then people had more to add. And so maybe I asked, why don't you add? But that was on a Google Doc at the time. Now you can't really add more people to the article itself. But if you want to comment more people to contact, you can do it so in the comments, or maybe it was that.
Okay. I just want to move along because there's several hands up, and James, go ahead. Because James, sorry, Carol, if that's okay, because he had his hand up, but not the mechanical hand, just his actual physical hand. Go ahead, James. You're unmuted. You are on mute though.
And
there you go.
Hi guys. So I hail from Canada. I've been working on 9/11 since 2013. I made 65 movies called 9/11: The Biggest Lie. And my first movie got 1 million views. Unfortunately, it discussed airplanes hitting towers on 9/11. And I watched Ace Baker's video on The Key, and I'm a video editor and a 3D designer, and I've built the towers in 3D, and I've done some discoveries incorporating the Fibonacci golden rectangle, which architects and engineers should know all about. And as a matter of fact, the Twin Towers were designed using the Fibonacci golden rectangle. And this has never been addressed. I put out movies to this effect. It's been completely ignored by the community. And so I'm on my own here. And yeah, there's this policy in place where it's denied. People that talk about no planes on 9/11 are given the same treatment as Judy Wood, or people who talk about holograms or whatever. There's a lot of hokey shit out there, but in reality, I can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt in a court of law that isn't corrupt that there were no planes hitting anything on 9/11.
All right. This was supposed to be
Yeah.
questions for Kristen. So
Yeah, until we change this, I thought you had a question for her.
Sorry.
that-
My question for her is, well, you want to get attention, right? You want to get involved with lots of people who have groups. And what really drives the point home is that the world is so utterly screwed and corrupt right now. People can relate to that. And 9/11 Truth is what started off as a grassroots movement, has burgeoned into what it is, can be very helpful in your cause to raise awareness. And in doing that, you got Building 7, which is, it took a long time for the entire world to get up to speed on, but a lot of people do know about it, and it is a very valid, important way to change people's perception about 9/11. So, yeah, that's my piece.
Thank you.
If I can respond to that
Yes,
quickly,
please.
if so I hear you, and actually I was approached by Norman of 9/11 Revisionist as well, and I was sent the sort of like the evidence that he had on Dr. Judy Wood's investigation on how the towers collapsed. And I do believe that on some things we should absolutely suspend judgment. I don't think that until we have complete data and complete information, anything is final, nor should we treat it as such. I do think that is very important to be humble and suspend judgment. I did read the PDF, or most of the PDF, the actual book that Dr. Judy Wood wrote, and there are some things that I think are not fully explained by the current data that we have, because simply we do not have access to, whatever technology it would be that it would have been used. That said, I do think that is more useful to focus on the things that we can say for certain. And in this case, what we can say for certain is that Building 7 did not collapse as described by NIST. In order to even have access to whatever directed energy weapons would have been used on the Twin Towers in Building 7, we have to first break through to the gatekeeping of the American military, which I hope happens, because I also happen to believe that there's also a bunch of weather weapons that we're not being told about, and that we've been talking about climate change without talking about weather modification and geoengineering for about 80 years. That's my personal opinion, right? But in order to get to that, we have to focus our attention on what's most immediately graspable, if that's a word, by the majority of the population. And that, I think, is Building 7 and the fact that it didn't collapse because of fire, if that makes sense.
Yep. You're much more kind than I am, Kristen. I just, here at the War Room, we typically are not siding with the no plane thing in Manhattan, and I typically am not down with Judy Wood, but
Especially Norman Swanepoel.
Norman Swanepoel is like, and I'll just say it, he's the worst of person. He puts scriptures at the bottom of his emails, and in the next word calls me the C word and every other word under the book, and it's like, okay, you're not exemplifying Christian. Just terrible.
You
person.
can do what you want with him. I would strongly suggest you stay away, because he's toxic.
I have noticed his attitude, and I have told him that it's not the best way to go about things. I don't think that takes away from the fact that perhaps we haven't looked enough into the Judy Wood evidence, and here I am suspending judgment. I hope we can all suspend judgment more, actually. I think that would make things easier as we are trying to accomplish this plan, which is broader, because it will go into, okay, how do we even restructure our whole systems after this has been exposed? Like suspension of judgment and really being able to talk to each other is what we need, and that's the heart of the plan. And so I have communicated to Norman that I don't particularly appreciate his approach, but I will also repeat that from what I've looked into, the information, like there is the explanation we have is not sufficient. But in order to get sufficient explanation, we need to first break through the military industrial complex. And to do that, like, we have to focus attention. And so that's how we focus attention, not by splintering, but by coming together. And when we come together, we suspend judgment where appropriate, and to figure out what the best strategy is.
I did get them to agree that we can at least agree that fire didn't cause the World Trade Center 1, 2, and 7.
Absolutely.
Begrudgingly, Matthew Estefo and I think just Matthew agreed with that, but there was kind of like a snide comment after that we're trying to find the common ground.
Let's get through the quiet. Kristen, there's a lot of people with their hands up.
Absolutely. I just wanted to honor,
We can try to keep it more succinct. Yeah. Go ahead, Carol.
Oh, I just want to greatly appreciate the time and the effort and the talent that you put into your outreach and your analysis. And I've been doing this since October 2001, which was shortly after. And my natural inclination was that the truth movement should combine with the peace movement. And it's been a complete challenge for like 25 years to do that. But I looked at your long list of people, and there's a lot of them who are already on board, who are also already part of the 9/11 truth movement. And then there's others who haven't. And then there's some that change and they shift. So I appreciate the list, but there has been a lot of experience people have had with that long list. We did a workshop at a media reform conference, and one person very perceptively noticed that when you come to a truth which challenges a person's view of themselves and their worldview, there's often total resistance. And even with Building 7, my husband is Canadian. He was like the top physics student in Canada, but he cannot break through his worldview that is blocking him from seeing it. So it's not the silver bullet. It can work for some people who are rational, but there are other people who we will never reach that. They have. So the question is, I think maybe we can go for the vast majority, but I don't think any strategy is going to work for everybody. But I appreciate all your efforts, and I'll read it, and I don't want to monopolize the conversation. I'll write some comments on your proposal. Thank you for being here and sharing.
Thank you so much for your words. Did you want me to respond to that?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
So yes, I have thought a lot about the fact that it just simply won't reach some people, but I think that is actually a psychological phenomenon, which is briefly explained in the article as well. It's the fact that when you have a lot of people seeing that you see that I see that you see at the same time, and forcing the conversation, forcing the evidence one next to the other. In this case, it would be NIST's evidence against architects and engineers for 9/11 truth. And again, the evidence about it not being collapsed by fire is sufficient in this case. That's what we need. When everybody is looking at the same thing at the same time, which is what the plan aims to do, it aims to bring the issue in front of everybody in the mainstream at the same time, such that occurs, the placing of evidence one next to the other, where then you really can't disagree at that point, because everybody is looking at it from a billion different angles, and it's the same information.
Very good. Thank you. Sue.
Yeah, Kristen, I understand why you want to use Building 7. But if your goal is to go after the military industrial complex and end endless wars, which is what the war on terror is, endless wars. On September 11th, 2001, the attack in New York and the Pentagon, attack in New York and Pennsylvania would not have been reason to go to war. However, the attack on the Pentagon was the impetus for going to war. You're shaking your head, Gene, but
yeah, just because Building 7 had federal government offices, DOD, CIA, that would have been enough. But all good.
I think it was the attack on the Pentagon that was declared as.
But because it was a federal office, and that's what we had the SEC, IRS, DOD, CIA, Secret Service. Like there were many reasons.
Not a reason to go to war.
The Pentagon.
There was no attack on number 7.
That's the only
just fires.
Yes, because it wasn't a deliberate, intentional. It was an indirect. So yeah.
The thing here, I guess, is that perhaps because we're so attached to the fact that our legal systems can even work in a system like this, then we're looking for ways to, appropriately go through the channels and declare something more or less effective and like breaking through a barrier. I think this is kind of hindering us in the movement a little bit, because what we really need to understand is that the most powerful aspect is the collective cognitive spell, which is what this plan specifically aims to break. We can have all of like the subpoenas and all of like the grand jury committees we want, but unless public attention is fully and completely on the matter, none of that will actually work, as we've seen. Like we've had some success in like bringing the issue ever so forward, but never really breaking through because the public attention is lacking. And at that point, I don't think it will really matter whether it's the Pentagon or Building 7. What will matter is that people will see the lie for what it is and will spontaneously start activating lots of different collective cognitive processes that will connect everything to the COVID, to the Epstein, to this, to that, and then there will be institutional reorganization at that point. I would advise against getting lost in these technicalities until we've converged, mass cognition.
Fair point. And apologies, Sue. Yeah, directly we were attacked at the Pentagon. So, yeah. But thank you, Kristen, for the bigger perspective from the 30,000 foot view. Let's not get into splitting hairs on things. Yeah, it doesn't help.
I mean, I think it's important. It's just...
Yeah, good point.
What you just said, Kristen, the cognitive dissonance, and we're not going to reach everybody, the population as whole, but we want a tipping point. And I think this year we've come closest to the tipping point. What I found out when back in 2011, 12, I can't remember what year it was, when we had the ballot initiative, people used to cross the street to get away from me when I was handing out 9/11 literature. But when we got the Attorney General of Massachusetts approving us to collect signatures for the ballot initiative for a Massachusetts investigation on 9/11, it had the seal of validity. And that made all the difference in the world. People were now crossing the street to talk to me and saying quietly, I always knew something was wrong. So if we can break through somehow to more mainstream media, to give it an air of validity rather than being written off as conspiracy. I don't want to hear anymore. I'm not going to hear beyond sentence 1 here because you're a conspiracy theorist, blah, blah, blah. If we can get an air of validity with the, to reach the main populace, I think that's going to make a big difference. And I think we got a little bit of that with Ron Johnson and with firefighters and with Tucker Carlson. And I think we need to keep going out to those more mainstream. I agree the anti-war movement is important as well. But that's mainstream is what we really need to break through to, as far as I'm concerned.
I think what I hear Kristen saying is we're just trying to enlarge our circles of influence by approaching people with circles of influence, and it just continues to ripple out. But Kristen, any other thoughts before I go to Ben?
And it will break through into the mainstream once the different circles that now are splintered, because there is a very big gap, for example, in the conservative versus progressive side of especially United States populace, where, for example, you have a lot of interest around like the Jeffrey Epstein case, but somehow like you still can't get people to, converge and like talk about it in a way that would sort of like mend those divisions because they are artificially exploited. So what we need to do is actually reach the people with those grievances with a very amicable attitude and actually for a moment set aside, the more cultural issues that are driving a wedge in the population and really manage to focus the attention perhaps on this. But again, like the plan says that every person can weave it in to their normal discourse because they already have an audience that trusts them, and so you shouldn't override everything with one thing in a way that feels tacky or artificial. We just need to have those conversations among ourselves first to understand how to weave all these people in, and then once that happens it will break into the mainstream because that will be the converged conversation of the non-mainstream. Now the non-mainstream is fractured. If we can defracture the non-mainstream, it will automatically break into the mainstream, if
Nice.
that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you, Ben.
Yeah, so
Benjamin.
on the topic of reaching out to people, you were hitting obstacles trying to approach, engineers and structural engineers. But I want to point out I saw a video by a historian. So maybe reaching out to historians. The historian I have in mind was giving a TED Talk, Danielle Ganser, and I thought he was extremely effective doing more with less. So he approached the topic in terms of just government propaganda throughout history. And that was the focus of the talk. And then as a side note, he said, "Oh, and here's 9/11. And there was a third building that fell, and I asked my students to find it in the official government report what the explanation was." And then he immediately followed up with, "It wasn't in there." "Oh, well, what do the experts say?" So he didn't even go to the contrary. There was no back and forth. He was merely clearly presenting what the official story was on its terms. And he's like, "Oh, NIST says the whole building fell because of one column," and just left it quiet. And everybody in their minds was putting this together. Like, wow, that's striking that it wasn't acknowledged. And then the official, yes, there he is right there, explanation, it just obviously makes no sense. You don't even have to say it. It's almost like the silence speaks for itself. So
Yes.
Yeah.
That is precisely it. And if we can so the article, the plan that I wrote goes into especially like that portion where it talks about the intelligentsia, which is the mainstream portion of the people that we need to get sort of like all looking at each other anxiously to say, "Oh, you're seeing that I'm seeing." And now I'm embarrassed because like it makes so much sense. But now I have to sort of, kind of not embarrass myself by not saying anything. That's the effect that we want to get. And once that happens, then we will have all of the Daniela Gansers doing exactly that on repeat for a long enough span of time that really you are doing more with less, because that's exactly the approach that we need, because you don't want to like spoon feed and like
exactly, because there's that psychological resistance
exactly
if you're presenting something new and then it's on that topic, so there's already that bias built in. So
we're doing the behind the scenes work of like reaching out to these people so that we all understand that if we do this, then our points, whatever is dear to us, whether it's Palestine or the trillions or climate change, will also get solved by this. Like if people can understand that, and people will understand that, and we do this work behind the scenes, then that's the front end of the work, is these intellectuals and these public facing people doing exactly that with that elegance. Thank you so much for this point.
Thank you, Benjamin. Let's go to Jetty in Scotland.
Hello, hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Hi, Kirsten. I loved the Plato's Cave thing that you did. I'm a musician predominantly, so I appreciated that. I think music's a great way to approach any topic. You're allowed to sing things that you would never ever get to say. You stand up and say it. I mean, listen to I can't remember the rapper 9/11 Building 7 did with Luke Fiasco. 9/11 Building 7. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I've spoke to him, believe it or not. Yeah. So I love the music thing because that's what I do. I'm a musician, but I'm also I've got a few qualifications in engineering. And back in 2012, we had a small research group who brought the errors and emissions around Building 7 to light. We put these out on videos, very technical videos, not presented with anything other than that, and very focused. And that was our idea, was we focus on this one point, like a battering ram, and use that to get the way through. I don't think that that's an appropriate approach now. When you look at the towers, if you imagine we had an equivalent study to the Twin Towers, equivalent to the one that we have on Building 7, imagine the import that would have in people. Remember, we all know about this stuff. We're talking about a group of people, the population, and in our own words, we say, how many people are even aware of Building 7? And that's a diminishing percentage. Ask yourself how many people are aware of the Twin Towers. And then look at the approach, because we don't want to, we will end up preaching to the choir here if we're not careful, because the only people who are going to tune into Building 7 and raise their eyebrows when that topic comes up are people who have already looked into this. We need people who haven't looked into this. And the evidence that we have, when we were much less sophisticated than anything Alaska University could ever do, but we immediately went back onto the towers, and the evidence that we have on the Twin Towers is stronger than the evidence that we had on Building 7 by a long, long way. And I think that has import. From a technical perspective, I think we should focus on that. But I love the music that you did. I thought it was great, and I would encourage you to focus on that. I think that's the way forward. Music is very engaging with people, and even if people don't like the subject matter or they're not quite aware of it, they won't click off because they like the music. So I don't want to discourage you in anything you're doing.
Thank you so much, Jerry. And yes, I agree with your point, and I've thought about it. My reasoning around that is that because so many people worldwide haven't heard about Building 7, suddenly bringing a lot of attention on something that is so obvious and at the same time so hidden will just make like the deception aspect of it so much more apparent. So my reasoning was that yes, more people know about the Twin Towers, and that will draw attention because Building 7 was just behind them. And then people not knowing that it even existed will just have that suspicion sit from the very beginning, and then they'll look into all of it kind of at once.
Yeah, fair point. I mean, we can but try, can't we? But yeah, you keep singing, you keep doing the music.
Thank you so much, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry. Let's go to Craig in Canada.
Yeah, I did want to get in the queue after the Kristen questions have finished, but I did want to answer, I did want to make a comment about, because we got sort of talking about the Pentagon there for a short time, and the fact that it was used as a pretext for going to war. I would add something, and so when I would say that it's not just details, and I want to get your opinion on this, Kristen. By the way, when Andy and I interviewed you for the Dawn of the Truth conference, it was 3 a.m. my time. So forgive me if I was not as talkative in that interview.
Not at all. You're so
as I would normally be.
It's 11. It's 11 p.m. now. So I guess we're all doing our best.
Normally, I'm pretty good at 3 a.m. But anyway. So my comment, I guess, is in terms of the Pentagon, the point I like to emphasize is that not only was it used as a pretext for a war, but it is the one thing, in my opinion, that proves government involvement in the plot. Because if any evidence was tampered with or planted or anything other than Flight 77 hitting the building on the official path, if anything other than that happened, then it proves U.S. government involvement. So I always, while I think Building 7 is a great place to start for the movement, and it always has been, I think the Pentagon is exceptionally important and shouldn't be, we should be using it too because really it is. I mean, it's the one area that I would think the government would want to keep us from talking about because it proves their guilt. So I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yes, I guess so. I don't know exactly what element of it would work into that, but I'm sure you and many others have worked on this like super diligently. I think that would be phase 2. So once Building 7 gets massive public global attention on it, and it starts churning the institutional systems here, especially in this case, the parasites that are within the military industrial complex. So the people who in the White House, in the military, in the Pentagon are, on the low, stealing all the money, etc. Like once that systems begins to churn and we can reliably figure out who some of these people are and hold them accountable, and we have like a guard in the background, think like an army of Smedley butlers saying, right, no, we're not going to have the business plot again or whatever, although like we're deep in it at this point. But then what you then do is use that aspect of the Pentagon to finally indict the people who were responsible. Like, see how like that's the next step, because I don't know how the Pentagon with all its complexity could be used to garner attention and to make the thing look so obvious, but in the eyes of the global population. The reason why I'm using Building 7 is because you have that clip of the building just going boop that you can turn into a meme, and you can use that meme and distribute it worldwide ad nauseum and have each country make its own meme about it, and it's immediate, like it's an immediate visual.
Right.
That's the reason why we're choosing Building 7, and it also happens to be incredibly simple to explain, just with the fact that Nis said there were no explosions, and then we just forget about Barry Jennings being in there, and like that's in the article that I wrote for Covert Action magazine. So that's just it's just a question of it being like the most efficient first step. The step of the Pentagon then would come when then you have the conditions whereby you can start indicting government officials.
Very good.
Yeah, I would just add, yeah, that's, I agree. I understand that. And the only thing I would add is that, a picture of the Pentagon lawn and, the question, where's the plane is a pretty powerful image too. And maybe more simple than people give it credit for, because it's kind of overcomplicated in our movement by people who are arguing that that the plane is inside the building, which is I think a physical impossibility. But anyway, I understand you have to start somewhere and get your foot in the door for sure.
Thanks, Craig.
So thanks.
Kristen. Let's go to Mike in Florida.
Hey, Gene, Sandra, good to see you guys. Hey, yeah, we at TAP have been working on a similar strategy for many months now, but we're taking a different approach. We're going at it from a full spectrum type strategy, and the people we're involving, the influencers, are right of the center, and they're more populist oriented to attract a greater percentage of people. And it is the conservative side, the Tucker Carlsons, the Candace Owens, etc., redacted, Clayton and his wife, Natalie. Those are the types that are really gaining the numbers. And that's where we're focused. And we're going after it in a more traditional redress of grievance style of strategy, where we incorporate, the influencers, the alt media, as they're the fourth branch of government, historically speaking. At the time of the revolution, the founding of our country, the media, the newspapers played a huge part in informing and educating the people. So we're building a dream team, is what we're calling it, and our list is similar to hers, but it's more to the right and populist oriented. So stay tuned. We'll be rolling it out here very soon.
Nice, Mike. I also want to add Candace Owens with some ridiculous number. See, it's looking, I'm trying to get a total number here. About 25 million viewers she's got across all platforms, and she used no advertising. So
that's right.
Wow.
She is the most powerful influencer in the world now.
Yeah.
That's been determined. She is number one in the world. That's just phenomenal. And what is so awesome, and it screams poetic justice, she's a black female. And that is what I love, just that is so appropriate.
Yep. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I just want to second Mike on that. I've said and thought that before. And what I love about Candace is when I hear a comment like that, I'm like, oh yeah, it's true. She's black. Like it's just like not on my radar, but I'm realizing how important it is to have a leading figure on that level. So yeah, I just wanted to second what you just said.
All right, let's go to Al. Unless you wanted to comment.
I guess my only comment there would be that in this effort, we should be intentionally very careful not to alienate the left. And Candace Owens is a figure who has sort of made her name in part, and I admire her immensely, but has made her name in part playing onto the rupture points. So it's undeniable that some of the influencer game is about exploiting the rifts between people, and many in the movement or in different aspects do that. We want to do the opposite, or at least we want to attract people who are able to go beyond that strategy and instead try to weave connections. That's my only comment in that respect.
Yeah, Tucker does that too. He's not afraid to throw jabs. But yep. Al?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Kristen, how much boots on the ground have you done in being out in the public, and what the best message you've had in approaching people that don't know anything? I mean, I've been at this for so long. I'm in sales, and my whole thing is keep it simple, stupid, and you got 5 minutes to get a message over. And once you get into the technicalities, guarantee you're going to lose a lot of people. I mean, there are people that do want to talk about, how it happened, what the technical take was, but my best advice is, and I think the simplest story out there is Building 7. It defies logic. It's something that anybody can wrap their head around. The second one to me is the Twin Towers, and how it could be possible that a 110-story building would drop in 10 seconds. I mean, you got to be an idiot to believe anything, about that, other than it never could happen unless there were explosives. So anyway, just curious as to what your experience is, and it does everybody a world of good to be out there and talking to people that just have no idea, and what your best successes are on that level. Anyway, that's all I got.
I mean, I was in Wellesley. I was literally the 9/11 girl, the crazy 9/11 girl who would go around pasting essays all over campus and pasting posters up on the walls and being reported to the dean of students and honor coded, et cetera, et cetera. So I, my boots on the ground experience would have been then, because then I moved to London, focused more on music, or in South America, I do work with communities that do land and water sovereignty and food sovereignty. I think that's an important part of building freedom. But I think the boots on the ground work that we need to perfect is this taking advantage of the trust networks that are already there. So if a person who has an audience understands that this plan has a logic to it, and the logic is basically we have to break the game of attention scattering. That's how they get us. So even if you're someone who has an audience and who is purporting this or that, they can still use you to drive rifts in the population. They can still instrumentalize you without you knowing. In order to not be a victim of that, you actually have to build a bridge to the other side. That way, it's actually all of the bottom people against the top people. So the boots on the ground here would be to be really focusing on changing that one tiny mechanism that basically switches the whole game around. Because we all have boots on the ground with our audiences. The moment we break the wall in between audiences, that's when they get really scared of us. But they also can't do anything about it. And so that's how we win.
Very good. Thank you. Mike. Happy birthday, Mike.
Thank you. Kristen, thank you so much for everything you're doing. And I have not managed to catch your music yet, but I will. And if you ever need a harmonica player, I have one.
That's
I don't play it, I don't play it very well, but I have some.
All right.
That's very sweet. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Let's go to Karl. Oh, where'd he go? You're muted. There.
Yes, there we go. Kristen, thank you for all you've shared. My name's Karl Gallivan. I was a secondary 9/11 quote responder as a U.S. Customs Special Agent. I helped sift the finer rubble of World Trade Center 7 after it was brought to Fresh Kills landfill. I just sent you a connection request in LinkedIn. There's a lot I would love to follow up with you about. In particular, the broader context of all that happened. There is a danger to just focusing on World Trade Center 7, as architects, engineers for 9/11 Truth has done for, well, since forever, that as we make it past the 25th anniversary, if all that we've actually accomplished is like in Senate hearings and such, that, oh yeah, we all agree the official story is a lie, then yeah, we're reaching the point where there's a generational shift, and a lot of people who were a driving force behind this movement are sort of gone. And in essence, controlled opposition has limited the debate. Like with the JFK assassination, they still talk about Lee Harvey Oswald as if he's anything but a patsy, because it keeps the debate away from. And here I'll suggest to you. If you were to find me on X, my pinned post addresses the issue of false flag terrorism in the broader context of an audio recording from actually 1961. A man named Benjamin Friedman, Freedman, who was part of even the Wilson administration or campaign team back in 1916, and his talk amazingly unfolds how almost everything for the last 130 years has revolved around political Zionism and building the, quote, Greater Israel Project. And this includes, I would suggest that our ultimate focus right now needs to be on the topic of false flag terrorism. I don't know if you're familiar with the USS Liberty attack, but their survivors are all, approaching 80 years old. They're about to be gone. And their live testimony is something that some would want to keep the Senate from focusing on that right now, which that helps unfold, the 130 years of Talmudic Zionism towards a Greater Israel Project as what's been at work. But I'll just mention a couple of things for reference as false flag events. The Lavon affair, 1954. Kennedy's assassination itself to bring LBJ, an ardent Zionist from his upbringing, into office, ready to greenlight the Six-Day War, let Israel get nuclear weapons, and ignore Kennedy's effort to register the Israeli lobby as a foreign agent. All of that went away when LBJ was made president, except, yeah, he, of course, greenlighted the Six-Day War. And Vietnam, in retrospect, almost was a distraction from what was building in the Middle East. And it's the Middle East that, to this day, is the crucial focus. Not what's Vietnam? It's where we get our sports shoes and even veterans vacation there now. It's sort of an odd situation. So false flag terrorism, and please connect on LinkedIn or also via X. I'd appreciate that.
Yes, thank you so much. And absolutely, I think especially at this time where so much of the world's focus is on Palestine and the genocide that's happening there. For example, I think that reaching out to people in the Palestine liberation movement, even if oftentimes they are more on the progressive side, like I understand that this group and this circle is perhaps more on the conservative side, but reaching out with this evidence and saying how pursuing this is actually the shortcut to liberating Palestine, for example, is crucial, right? Because we see the footsteps of Israel everywhere in this issue, and it's just ridiculous. It has to stop. So yeah, I absolutely appreciate this this comment, and I think this is one of the reasons why we should pursue this as well.
Thank you, Kristen. And I wouldn't say we're too conservative here. We got all of Boston here and some Californians, so we're balanced.
And your wife. And your wife.
Yeah, my wife. Even in the room, we're kind of balanced.
Yeah, James, did you still specifically want to address something Kristen said? You're muted.
Sorry. Okay. One of the ladies that got on talked about hippie revival kind of thing. If you blend that together, a peace movement, flowers and Volkswagen buses and people wearing bell bottoms and just basically bringing it back as a sort of like a trend or a fad, but underlying message being peace, unity, and understanding that the world doesn't have to be this way. We're in a world of hurt. I just wrote that. And yeah, the leaders of the world are what do you call it when they're in the bag of some rich elites? They're basically following orders from. Yeah, basically, yeah. And isn't that bribing in Congress and Senate on behalf of IPAC? Isn't that act of treason? And not to mention George Bush, for example, dual role as infiltrator into the American government and president of the United States, posing as a doofus. He wasn't doofus. He was very smart. He carried out his mission. And that was 24 years ago. And we're still living in the nightmare. And everything that came out of 9/11, it's like Pandora's box. It unleashed evil on the world. And the whole world is suffering right now. So I want to light a fire under people's asses to get more involved. And basically, I've been trying my hardest and pushing and pushing and pushing. And I got 15,000 people behind me.
Nice.
I'm done.
Thank you. We also doing the same thing. I also want to point out a little known fact. I bet you a lot of people here didn't know this. David Ray Griffin, because of his work regarding 9/11, David Ray Griffin and the 9/11 Truth Movement were nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2008 and 2009. We are a peace movement, and
always have been.
Yep. So that's a little neat fact.
All right. Well, I'm gonna add my 2 cents. I'm not really sure where to start because there's just so much to say. I admire your idealism and your eagerness and your willingness to, and this big plan idea. We've been doing this for the better part of 15 or 20 or 24 years, and we've done a lot of that. A lot of people on that list, I'm sure, have all been contacted. They're all aware of 7. Richard likes to say that the 9/11 Truth Movement is like herding cats. And it's probably the truest thing you can say about the Truth Movement ever, because everybody's got their specific angle, their specific plan, their specific idea, how they would tweak it, how they would do it better, how your idea is not valid because, and so on. And people like to right fight a lot. So having done this and having tried, Gene especially, trying to rally the troops for anything at all, ever, is near impossible. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. We have tried, we tried to get one person in each state to send the presidential commission document to the senators of each state. It took me a dozen emails of following up, pushing, asking, is there anybody? And we have a huge list. 9/11 Truth Movement page, there's 43,000 people on that thing. I could not cover all 50 states. This was to take a document, print it out, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and send it off to your senator. It took me 4 months, and I covered, out of the 50, I think I covered like maybe 30, 32 states. And that's assuming that everybody even followed up and said, because these are just the people who said they would, never mind the people who actually did, which frankly, I don't even want to know. It's everything about the Truth Movement is a challenge to get anybody to convince people that 7 is the thing to rally around. We finally got Tucker to turn around. He was a rabid anti 9/11, person. Yeah, exactly. And it took years of work just to get him to open up and to consider it. And when he did, obviously, we're extremely grateful. And then he said he was going to do a documentary series. And we're like, this is great. He's doing a documentary series. We would have loved to have had some input on there. He didn't speak to architects and engineers. He did it his way. He did it his angle, what he thought was important, what he thought what would attract, people's attention. Everybody's got an agenda of their own. Nobody's going to be told what to run with, how to run with it, have that be dictated by anybody. We got this far in the Truth Movement by each of us doing what we feel called to do. People will not get on board with things. They won't. They just won't. And this is 20 years of doing this. Unless people feel compelled and called intimately in their soul to do something. And that's just 9/11. That's just the 9/11 people. Never mind the COVID and the climate change and all of those people. They will never be convinced that even if they see a connection, but it's a heart thing. The activism thing is a heart thing. And, every once in a while we have someone coming on the call and say, people should, or you should, or someone should. And it's like, all right, just do it. We have full-time jobs. A lot of us have full-time jobs, and we're doing 9/11 full-time. And with the tools that we have that work best for us, we are convinced by. We've been selling Building 7 for years. That's a single approach. If we ever approach anybody, that's the thing. Building 7. You're right. It doesn't get simpler than that. It's the most obvious thing. It's easy to prove. It's compelling when you watch it. It's an amazing tool. And this is how far it's gotten us, with the best work and the best effort by the best people. Richard has done thousands of interviews.
1,000.
Over 1,000 interviews. And some, and we do it because we're like, you don't know where the seed is going to land. If you knew how we got to Tucker, I'm not going to tell the story to bore you, and everybody else here knows it, but it started with a seed in 2022, that with a random spam email, and it ended up with Tucker doing a documentary series. There was a direct line from that spam email to Tucker. And so that's why we encourage people to, whatever you think is going to work, just plant the seed, because you don't know who's going to pay attention, who's going to run with it, but you have to let it go. You're not going to convince people. You shouldn't have to talk people into doing things. If they don't feel like doing it, they won't. And so I'm just telling you that from years and years and years of experience. And the last thing I want to do is have theoretical discussions that are about idealistic things that would require so many things to work out so perfectly to even have a chance. So I don't want to discourage any of it, but I want to be absolutely clear and realistic about, based on everything we've done and how far we've got, which is not that far, but it's a hell of a lot further than we've ever been. And we're extremely grateful to be where we are. And maybe Tucker catches on, maybe next thing, Candace talks about it, and maybe, it does spread, and then it happens organically. And when it's organic,
Yes.
it's unbelievably powerful.
Yes.
But they have to come to their own realizations. They have to feel compelled to say, you know what? The time has come for me to take a stand on this thing that happened 25 years ago, and make it compelling to other people to get on board, because there's so many things. People are distracted. The news cycle is never ending. There's always going to be something more important than 9/11. So yeah, I understand theoretically all the reasons you explained, perfect reasons to run with it, 100%. I agree with you. Totally agree with you. But then the reality is just a very, very different thing. And it's asking too much of too many people to realistically make happen. So I'm happy to be proven wrong. I'm absolutely, I'll do my part. And
can I respond?
Of course, yes.
Thank you for that. I would just want to say that the plan, I wrote it exactly with that in mind. I was reflecting on how I had my slap in the face depression awakening of how the world is. And it just happened to be Building 7. For a lot of people now, it's Palestine. For a lot of people, it was COVID, right? So it has to come, as you say, from that intimate place of where he hits you the most. That is absolutely correct. And yes, I am also very upset at how much it is a herding cats situation and people don't get along. But that's exactly why the only focus that we could, not say should, but we could put an effort to is simply that of proposing, kind of like in how in meditation you come back to your breath. It's like, okay, so much, come back to your breath, and then you calm down. The only thing that we have to do collectively is coming back to Building 7. It is so important that each and every person then ties back Building 7 to Palestine, to COVID, to climate change, to the missing 21 trillion, to Epstein. Each and every person that we reach out to, and here is really just actually it's also kind of like a human experiment of holding each other in this wound and in this hurt that we all have. We're reaching out to each other and we're having this conversation and we're asking, where did it hurt for you? Where did the world crumble for you? And we talk about it with each other and we understand each other's wounds. And then we just simply bring it back to Building 7 and we tell to each other, you know what? These powerful people at the top, they also don't really like each other, as we've seen. They all hate each other, they're all friendless, they're all using each other, but they agree on one thing. They all agree on total control, and they're going to work with each other in order to achieve total control. And so the US probably is salivating over the prospect of having Chinese style surveillance, right? But they both want to eventually be the world dominators. What we're doing is similar. We're working together for what we need in order to avert complete control. We are talking to each other about the fact that these people at the top, they are able to collaborate with each other, even though they don't like each other and they'll eventually want to win over one another. They are able to collaborate to reach the goal of total control. We at the bottom want to absolutely avoid total control happening. And as we invite each other in holding each other's wounds, holding each other's portals to understanding that this obsession over control is what's destroying everything at the macro level and at the micro level. Like, if you look at, like, you know, the correspondence, the fractality of reality and whatnot, that sits in every human soul. So we are inviting each other into this conversation. We're saying, hey, how was COVID for you? Or how was finding out about global pedophilia? What's your experience in that? And then we're just saying, and in order to honor all of these wounds, we are just doing the most logical thing that we can come up with, which is to just bring our breath back, bring our attention back to the one thing that can break through all of these things at the same time in the most efficient way possible. So it's not trying to shove it down each other's throats. It's just saying, I know that this is more important for you. In fact, Building 7 was just the beginning for me. For me personally, right now, I personally think that a lot more attention on the spiritual tragedy of pedophilia and violence against planet Earth with weather weapons is so much more crucial to pay attention to. But I inherently know that we'll never break through to that unless there is a prior breakthrough that is easier to make happen. So Building 7 is not even the most important for me. But I just understand that if I can invite other people to this actually spiritual new thing that we're doing, which is just deeply listening to each other, and we're just saying, right, how can we work together to tend to this wound, even if we disagree in other things? How do we avoid total control and total destruction from happening? And then I think that if we honor each other in that way, it'll kind of come easy to the smart people, to the intelligent people, to, you know, put their big guns aside for a moment, or even, like, you know, describe their big guns and why they're important through the lens of this other tiny thing, which is honestly, like, not even that consequential in the bigger picture, but that is such a powerful weapon to make it all crumble down at once. That's the only argument, and it actually, like, underlines so well what you just said, because I think that's what we have to do. We have to really honor those differences and those, you know, that spirit thing that you were talking about, that heart thing that you were talking about.
I think your phone is coming through over here. Because his phone is connected to the mics and he's got an alarm thing going on. Okay. Yeah, the requirement for that would be an insanely high level of emotional intelligence required of people to understand that they have to put their egos aside, regardless of what they think is more important or what issue really means something to them, or what part of 9/11 is more important. You know, right here you had, you know, Craig saying that the Pentagon for absolutely valid reasons, and other people's, Jerry talks about the Twin Towers because that's more, you know, right in this little group, you know, you're going to have disagreements on what and people are, that's the nature of human beings. They are not going to unify. They're not going to get behind something because their egos are going to get in the way. So the kind of level of emotional intelligence you're asking for is extremely
But
high.
they don't have to. That's the trick. They don't have to. In the plan at the end, it's described. You don't even have to agree with the fact that Building 7 should be the focus. All you have to do is have the conversation with the people across the aisle who you wouldn't usually have the conversation with. So take two people who have large audiences, take Kai Pritzker of BTS, Breakthrough News, like huge on the left because the left is so fractured, they don't have very big people, unfortunately, and Candace Owens. Have those two people have a very civil, open-hearted conversations on the things that they think are really important, and just bring it back to Building 7 and ask, what would it do for my audience? What would it do for your audience to bring attention to this thing? If not Building 7, what other thing could make this happen for your audience? Even if it doesn't end up being building 7, the fact that that conversation happened and you brought it back to the same thing is using a point of focus, which doesn't have, like, nobody has to commit to it. Suspension of judgment is encouraged. You don't have to commit to it. You just have to present it. All you have to do is put it on the table, and then you can say what you think is the best one to focus on. So for example, if I were to have this conversation with Craig, and Craig had 10,000 people audience, we would talk about the Pentagon, and he would very clearly explain why he thought that the Pentagon was the one to focus on. But building 7 would be brought back in every conversation. And so what you'd have is everybody talking about the same thing and different things, bringing it back to one thing, and then evaluating it all together. And then if the focus naturally shifts, then it naturally shifts. But all we're trying to do is figure out whether that chosen focus would stick. I personally think it would, because it's more immediate. It can be turned into a meme, etc., etc., etc. It's just self-fulfilling kind of in a way. But you're not asking anyone to let go of their own focus. Actually, what you're asking is for people to lean into their focus and imagine what it would take for their issue and their grievance to get justice, what it would take to break through the cognitive division that there is. This is how you do it.
There was an interview between Tucker Carlson and Cenk Yeager. I think that's how he pronounced his last name, from the Young Turks. They're two diametrically opposed ideologically, but then they discussed building 7 and they all agreed on it. And so you find these things.
We need that times 10,000.
Yeah.
That's the model that we need. We need that every time. But crucially, what we want to happen in that conversation is that at some point they would say, yeah, and what would happen if all of a sudden the military or everybody in the military tried to figure out who amongst them is the parasite that's stealing of the trillions and trillions that are disappearing every year? What would happen if all of a sudden all the people involved in the Epstein case came to light and we made some legislation to seize their assets and redistribute them? What would happen? That's the conversation that we want to happen among people who usually don't talk to each other. And all this plan is about is not putting anything in anybody's mouth, is just making those conversations happen. That's all the plan is. So the emotional intelligence actually just kind of emerges when you are in front of another person and you are listening to them deeply and realizing that a lot of their grievance is also your grievance in a very significant way, and then just trying to figure out together how you break through the spell that is being imposed upon us.
Yep. Thank you. We'll go to Karl, and then we're going to go around the room. Karl.
Thank you. Yes, Kristen, I'll share with you and also the others. You haven't heard this story before. I was very much like you, focused on WTC7 as the chink in the armor that we needed to break open to get to the truth. Back in 2007, when I first left the government, I was hired soon thereafter to be the security director of Ron Paul's 2008 presidential campaign. And in that capacity, I always drove Ron Paul wherever we were at any campaign site anywhere in the country. And in late 2007, I think it was, we were in Nevada, and we always drove a Dodge or Chrysler minivan. It was standardized as a low-profile vehicle that we could get in and out of very quickly. Dr. Paul was sitting in the right front passenger seat, and joining us for that about 24 hours was Tucker Carlson. And he was sitting in the next row back, and I explained to him, as we're driving around Nevada between campaign sites, I told him my experience of sifting the finer rubble of WTC7 and suspecting that among things we pulled out of that rubble might have been undestroyed demolition electronics that would, help explain that it was a controlled demolition, et cetera. Now, he didn't interrupt, but he soon, as I finished, he said, "That's crazy. That's in the way he especially did back then." So I've wanted ever since to reconnect with him, and I've come close a few times. Like 2 years ago, he spoke here in the Washington area where I am at a Heritage Foundation 25th anniversary event, And I got as close as one of his handlers who was distributing his books and all that, but no closer. Yeah, passed along a few inscribed books, etc. But I would ask, since Gene and Sandra, evidently you've been in direct person-to-person, two-way communications with Tucker. I think you can understand the importance to me and maybe to Tucker of reconnecting to, take that trip down memory road of how, we spoke about this in 2007, and now he and others are speaking about WTC 7. So would you two pass along the contact information for Tucker that you found effective?
There's no direct contact to Tucker there, but thanks for plugging yourself. All right.
Did you say you are not in direct contact with Tucker?
Direct contact with Tucker.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
There was a whole long way to get to nothing. Craig, go ahead.
I'm still muted.
You're muted, brother.
So am I.
He's working on it.
Yes, caught me by surprise there. So this is we're going around the room now. Is that correct?
If you don't mind, it's been a heck of a week for us, but yeah, if you don't mind kicking it off for us,
I'm happy to do that. I actually want to talk about some of the comments that you and Sandra have made over the last week about architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, and I would start by saying that in terms of criticisms of the recent decisions made by the board, I think we probably are in agreement, and I probably don't have a lot of fault to find with any of the criticisms made of recent decisions. In fact, I might even be stronger in my criticism, possibly. However, where I took exception was in the dismissal of the work that was done by AE in recent times. I mean, I don't have to go back 4 years, but I've been back for a year and a half or something like that. And two of the comments that I think Sandra said something like AE has been whittled down to the occasional free fall and random article. So I'm not sure what makes those articles random, but anyway. And Gene, you said that there was, I think, virtually no significant articles or something, or maybe you were talking about engineering. I'm not sure.
Yes.
But I just want to give you a quick rundown of the kinds of things that were going on that I think, I feel like that Andy Steele and I were not the problem in this recent problem that went between them and between Kelly David and Kamal Obeid and Richard. Didn't involve us. In fact, I think we were victims of this. So I just want to quickly sort of give an overview here of why I think AE was doing some good things. First of all, we contributed to the Weldon booklet. I spent many hours on that last weekend with Raul on the phone, doing editing, and then we had Jeff Long doing the design of the whole thing.
Craig, hang on one second, because
we had
real quick. Hang on one second. Definitely, it's cool to get into this real quick, but I want to be mindful of Kristen because it's getting late there for her. Are you good, Kristen, or did you want
to? If nobody has any more questions, then I might.
Yeah.
I might head out soon.
Yep.
Because I have to work tomorrow.
Understood. Same here. And you're earlier than we are. So any quick last final comments? I really appreciate Kristen. We don't normally do interviews, so it's kind of like, I'd like to frame this as thank you for joining the roundtable discussion about this topic.
Thank you guys for giving me so much space and for asking so many questions. And I hope that this has been helpful. And thank you, Sandra, for also sharing what you just shared earlier. I think it's really important. I think that's actually the point. Like what you said is so important, and that's described at the end of the article. So thank you guys so much for this opportunity.
Yeah, look for Kristen on Substack. I will share the link in the show notes, but it's substack.com/ What is it?
Oh, whoops. I just sent the article.
Actually, there's no direct link to. It's
Hey,
Kristen.
Farini.substack.com.
Great to see you again.
Oh, hey. Hello.
All right, so check it out, and I'll put it in the show notes. And thank you again, Kristen.
Thank you so much, guys.
And I definitely see the Italian wore off on you very much. Because I'm Italian too.
All right, and you can also write to me through Substack if anything comes to mind. If you have any ideas, I would love whatever, ideas, support.
Yep.
Come your way. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you soon. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.
Right, Craig, let's get into it.
Wait. Before Craig gets into it, I I totally agree with you that the problem was not with you or Andy. And if you never let me live down some words that I choose that come across obviously in a way that about. I know that AE has done, and you guys specifically have done. If you're going to run down a list of things you've done, yes, 100%, absolutely. I'm not denying any of that. I'm aware of all the things that you and Andy have done, and you're probably going to remind me of some that I may have forgotten for sure, and I'll be like, okay, yeah, it's true, there was this and that and the other thing. Yes, with that said, go ahead if you still want to do that. I'm not.
Well, yes, I do. Yeah, that was the whole purpose of me trying to talk about it. I don't think you've changed. I don't think you've withdrawn any statements. So I think I do need to respond, because the impression that you leave is that, once Richard was fired, everything just went to pot and there was nothing done of any value. Now there were issues. Well, okay. To somebody else who doesn't know the details, reading what you wrote, they may well come away with that impression. And I just want to let me just give you a couple of things here. Roland Angle his focus was on engineering, and that was what he believed was the right route to go. So he ran project due diligence, and they did, I think, at least 40 presentations to engineering groups. There was a program at AE to contact the heads of chapters of ASCE chapters. I want to point out also that the Matt Campbell thing, that in early 2024, that effort was very close to running dry, and when I saw that they needed some whatever. I don't know how much it was, but it was tens of thousands of dollars. I said to Andy, we should get Matt Campbell on free fall, and then we should put out an appeal to all of the AE donors to raise money for this and try to get this over the finish line. And now I have no idea who came up with the money, but it ended up happening. Now, I'd like to think that AE played a part in that. I don't know who the donors were. So that's an important. Hold on here. I just want to get my document here that I just made a list so I wouldn't forget stuff. Okay, so there's that. There's I think we raised money for at Mick Harrison's request for the lawyers committee's lawsuit related to the Supreme Court. I think I don't remember all the details of that. We also had a podcast called The Focus, which was Andy Steele's idea and went on from early 2023. And I believe after Roland Angle passed away, I believe the idea was to bring Richard in as a regular on that podcast. Perhaps, Richard can correct me if I'm wrong about that. And I also want to point out that I'm continuing to work on Roland Angle's book. I'm actually working with his widow, Nikki. And that's something I've been doing for many months, entirely, in my own time. And it's very much related to engineering. And I'm quite enjoying working with Nikki. She's a terrific person. And also I would just mention too, the 24th Hour and the Dawn of the Truth conferences where we had a presidential candidate interviewed about 9/11, not to mention Oliver Stone's son, Sean, and a bunch of other people. So, and then I would also just make a reference to Gene, you made a comment about the Pentagon. That's not a fruitful area to go into. I would remind people that we only did 2 interviews about the Pentagon. One was in the summertime with Adam Ruff, and one was in the Dawn of the Truth conference, which was one of 10 different interviews, many of which were not about 9/11, including the one we did with Daniela Ganser, which was about Ukraine. So nobody seems to have a problem with us doing Ukraine, but it's interesting that 9/11 is, that the Pentagon's a problem in a 9/11 movement.
But with the Ukraine thing too.
Yeah.
But
well, I think you can't do every interview about the World Trade Center evidence for 20 years, and it gets to be a little repetitive. But anyway, before I just wind up here, the thing about the articles and the free fall. Not only we covered Kristen's piece. I wrote articles about Raul Angelo's pieces in that firefighting magazine, more than one piece on that. We posted, Paul Cayley did a piece about his calling Bravo 7 thing. We posted that. I've written numerous pieces about the Kurt Weldon and the Ron Johnson stuff, including how the media tactics were used against Ron Johnson. We've covered, Richard and Kamal Obeid reacting to the Weldon thing. We've covered the Tucker Carlson interviewing Weldon, and then the Tucker Carlson recent series. We did Richard Bielicki. We did Richard Rotan's. We did an article on Richard and Kamal being interviewed on the SGT report. And then we did another show where Gage, Richard, Kamal, and John Schuler reacted to the Richard Rotan's interview. And of course, we've done stuff on censorship and stuff like that, which directly relates to 9/11. And we had Anthony Schaefer also. And going back as far as March, we actually had Richard Gage and Gail Gage on 9/11 Freefall. And that was, that was my urging, really, that we do that, because I thought it would be good for the movement as a whole. And this is where I have a problem, Sandra, with your article, especially the little bit you added at the bottom. Honestly, I was very upset to see that. You can certainly criticize some things that have been done, but the AE brand is critical to this movement and to the success of this movement, and it shouldn't be thrown up under the bus, and it shouldn't be trashed. There's a problem going on right now that definitely needs to be solved. It's not a good situation. It needs to be fixed, but it's not impossible to fix it, I believe. I don't know what the solution is. I wish I did. But anyway, I'll stop there. But I just wanted to make it clear that we did a lot of stuff about engineering, in addition to when we interview a podcaster, we're not asking them about free fall acceleration or anything, so obviously we're going to go kind of around 9/11 sometimes, but I think it's been mostly positive, but the current situation is obviously not acceptable. So I'll stop there.
I greatly appreciate that list, and I got to say that I forgot a lot of those. So I would love it if you could email me the list, because that is fantastic. I appreciate all the work you and Andy have done, keeping it going in the last little bit. And it's just, we are in a tough spot, because we agree that AE 9/11 Truth is a landmark milestone for the 9/11 Truth movement as far as an organization is concerned, and we do want the best for it. And it's terrible to see what's going on. I think we all here are very familiar with AE 9/11 Truth and how far it's gotten us. And thanks to Richard for founding it. And I don't think it's hero worship to say that Richard is and I often said this, and I'll repeat it again. David Ray Griffin, as far as I'm concerned, is the godfather of the 9/11 Truth movement. Where would we be without David Ray Griffin? Richard wouldn't be here without David Ray Griffin. But as far as I'm concerned, and it's not hero worship to say all of what Richard's done, I want to give him credit for it. I think he is the father of the modern day movement. Anybody here done 1,000? And I'm not doing this to puff you up, Richard, and I know it's hard to hear sometimes, but nobody else here has done 1,000 interviews or 1,000 presentations on the buildings and everything going on there. So I do appreciate what you shared there. Sandra, do you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If AE comes back from this in a healthy way, I will be the first one to stand in line with the horns and the banners and all of that stuff. I've been holding my mouth and really trying to be as balanced as I could for the last 3 or 4 years, which I know you don't believe, but I was. And now I just reached a point. And that art, what I wrote, even though I took 2 days because I was livid when I read it. So had I written about it, I know myself well enough to step back from something before responding to anybody or anything, because it's not going to be pretty. So that was me kind of stepping back, but it spoke from the heart. It spoke from, in those moments, I'm not a robot. Okay. As reasonable and rational as I try to be, to pull out those couple of words, because to me, this was, at the end of the day, this is my perception. It's my vision. And to have someone else come and tell me, you're wrong because, and maybe I am, but it's still mine.
People do it to me all the time.
Well, but like, and if I wrote it again today, I'd probably use different wording. All I meant by that was that my disappointment with AE goes back so far because there's almost nothing left to encourage any architects and engineers to get involved, to get on board, to support the organization, because it's been so far removed from there. And there's been nothing really inspirational or a project where you say, yeah, I can get behind this. I don't mean to demean what you're saying and what you've done. But for the viewer who's familiar with AE, it was really just you two were the faces of AE. It was the podcast and it was the article. When I say random, I just mean like there was no like schedule or anything like that. It came when it came, when there was something to say. That's what I meant by random.
There never was a schedule. There was never a schedule.
I agreed. But it just, yeah, totally. But it's the only thing that was. There was nothing else. It was those two things that were basically what AE present.
Real quick for the viewers, did you guys, everybody else wonder what they're talking about? Sandra put this article out. I guess I forgot to share that. This is new news too.
Well, in response to AEs that came out first.
AE put out an article. It's pretty bad, and there's no author, so they didn't say who it was written to, but we're pretty sure we know who wrote it. But
there's only 2 of them.
Yeah, there's only 2 of them.
Yeah, and basically what they put out was their counter argument to what happened behind the scenes about Richard being asked to come back and then not coming back after all.
And then Sandra wrote this, and that's what Craig and Sandra are discussing right now. So
yeah,
I'll put the link in the show notes if anybody wants to read.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. I do want to just respond to see where I have the problem. It's not that you're like I said, it's not that you're criticizing what the 2 remaining board members are doing, or even some decisions that have been made over the last 4 years. But you have to admit, you have to understand that there's a unique set of circumstances here. Post 2021, and I don't think we want to get into the details of that anymore, but I mean, that happened. It's over. Now the question is, what do we do from here? And, AE's ability to raise money was hurt by that, obviously. And a lot of the donors that would have given to AE probably now give to Richard and probably give to the International Center because Ted Walter's over there. So there are no large donors left. So it becomes like it's like a domino effect. Like what happened? Is it no projects means no money, or is it no money means no projects? It becomes very difficult. So, my problem is that and I had the same problem with what you guys said a couple of years ago, that we had a bit of a clash over, and then patched it up. But what I had a problem with then was that it wasn't just like I really strongly disagree with these decisions. It was like AE is like a shadow of what it used to be, and it's just like it's hard to come back from that. But it's okay. But like that's not helping.
No, it's
to trash the organization in the last 4 years is of no value.
It's
if you want to talk about.
I don't think we're trashing the organization. No.
No, it's.
Have you read the bottom of Sandra's the thing she added to the article?
Yeah.
Rest in peace, architects and engineers.
Well, because that's
what's shocking to me.
Said if they come honestly, I have right now, I have like no hope, none of anything. And
there's two drunk sailors driving the ship right now. I would say.
And
well,
and it depends who gets brought into the fold. And again, if it turns around and it gives me reason for optimism, I will be the first one to cheer them on. I absolutely promise, because that's all I've ever done. And the criticism came, and I've told you this before, the criticism comes from this love that I have for that organization and my being saddened by what it's become. And maybe you're right. You lose some of the funding. You can only do so many projects. I don't know. There's got to be a way to inspire people to do something that doesn't cost like $1 gazillion. And
for anybody that wants to get into the weeds on this, again, I'll put all these links in the show notes, but here's the article that AE put out, The Truth You Were Not Told About the Richard Gage Transition, where they made a claim that he didn't give a vision statement, to which Richard responded and posted the vision statement on his website. You're welcome to read through. And then Sandra wrote her article, and I'll put all those links if you want to go down that rabbit hole into the weeds of herding cats. But
I agree that the statement that was a big. I mean, you don't criticize something for not existing unless you're pretty darn sure that it doesn't exist. And so it looked very foolish. I agree, and I've been honestly working on a third part to my series on this whole thing, but it seems like every time I get halfway through writing it, then some new thing happens, and then I have to start all over again.
I'm wondering where it is.
So all I would say, Sandra, is that your article is basically like, there's no hope. It's all shit. There's no hope at all, and I don't think that's good. And it also reads, and I know how you guys feel about Richard, but it's one thing to be loyal to Richard, but it's another thing to be kind of blind. Like it's like all one or the other. I think you need to think about this from the truth movement's perspective, which means don't throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Agreed.
Just because you think Richard got a raw deal. Like, we've got to find a solution that's good for the cause, not just for the symmetry of Richard being back in his organization, which
totally. And that last line, that can be read as a dare. You think we're dead? Watch us. We're coming back with something. So
we're going to move on, but thank you.
Well, that makes it harder, though. If people think we're dead or they're dead, I'm not even part of it anymore. So
important, Craig. Nobody's going to be influenced by anything I say.
Dawn of the Dead. Anyway, that was the movie.
Yeah.
All right.
Dawn of the Dead. Yes. That's what inspired the whole conference. Yeah.
All right. It's 7:03. Let's go around the room. This is where we take just basically 30 seconds real quick. Any final thoughts? This isn't to open up a new dialogue or anything. So
30 seconds.
James, we'll start off with you. Anything for the group wrapping up?
Yeah, it was my first meeting and I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I'd like to come back if you'll have me. I'm willing to offer my services as a graphic artist and 3D designer and video editor. I can make movies. I can help you guys, and I'm willing to do that.
Right on.
James, what's your last name?
I think it's Easton, right?
Easton.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, James. James Easton, like the bat.
Easton.
Right on. Thank you. Let's go to Al.
Yeah, I'm good. Join us in a couple of weeks, and interesting conversation. Gonna get into a real deep dive on a lot of this stuff, but I'm still awake.
Yeah, isn't your next guest at this point?
Hi,
yeah,
Rossini.
Mark Rossini, right?
We'll bring in that.
Yeah.
Dude.
Mark, not this Thursday.
December 11th, Mark Rossini. So, and then we're not having another meeting until January 8th, which will be Richard Ellifritz.
And the 8th is a Monday, so that's a little different time.
Right.
And the 22nd.
What?
January 8th, 2026.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a Thursday.
So for those that are
That's a Thursday.
oh, my bad. I'm
26th.
looking at the wrong month. Okay. So to
Yeah.
sorry for the confusion here, and then I'll go back to Al and Sue. December 11th, Mark Rossini. January 8th, Rich Ellifritz. January 22nd, Dan Noel. And February 5th, Sibel Edmonds.
Yes,
Nice.
and this can be my round table. We also have upcoming, I'm sure it's going to be voted on, but our voting committee hasn't responded. We'll have Mike, I always mispronounce his last name. Help me.
Mike.
Well, spell it and we'll tell you how to pronounce it.
Z.
Zarzano. Hey, just call me Mike Czar. Mike Czar is good.
Czar Mike.
Dr. Z.
Yeah. Czar Mike and Chuck Fall. And also I've reached out to Phil Torney, but no response yet. Karl, if you could help on that, please. And Karl, you expressed interest in being a speaker, but you haven't really followed through on what you would want to talk about.
Sandra, I forwarded you the interview Phil did of me where I described my WTC7 related experience as well as being canceled on the broadcasts of Ron Johnson after that with both Brett. So you know exactly what I can talk about concerning 9/11. And I think that's what Boston 9/11 Truth is about, right?
Yeah, it's about 9/11, but I also need the a better contact for Phil Torney, and I can share that video, but I need a paragraph from you to put to I need a paragraph.
I'll get you a paragraph.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue.
You're welcome.
Go back to Al. Anything else, Al?
Thank you.
All right. Good to see you. Thanks for being here, Al and Sue. Go to Mike Cook on his birthday. You're still vertical. I don't know what kind of birthday you're celebrating there.
I'm going to get busy after we get off of here. As we were having this discussion about the AE Richard Gage thing, I just remembered a documentary I saw on the Clash. I was always a big fan of the Clash, the kind of punk rock band. And it was a great documentary, and the band was being managed and they kept changing the lineup, and eventually they got rid of Joe Strummer. And that was it. The band was over. He was the force behind the band. So I really do understand the rest in peace architects and engineers comment. I hope it doesn't go that way, but Richard's been the force behind that organization, and I would be very happy to do 1,000+ interviews, especially if I was getting paid the incredible big bucks that Richard's been getting paid for 2 decades. All right. And another thought came to mind. I'm not sure where this is from, but it's a good quote. It says, they thought they would bury us. They didn't know we were seeds.
Very good.
Love that one, yeah.
Happy birthday, Mike. This one's for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I like that stuff.
All right, let's go to Brian Good. Whew, that was rough. Whew.
Well, I just want to say to Craig, he throws that word proof around a lot. Proof. I don't know where he went to school, but where I came to school, proof has a very rigorous definition.
We'll leave that at that. Thank you, Brian. Jane?
I forgot to mention, I actually met Joe Strummer. He was in Yosemite Valley in El Cap Meadow checking things out, and all these climbers went over there. We were like, "Oh, Joe, we love you." He was a great guy.
Thank you. Jane Milliken? Sweet Jane?
Too sweet sometimes. Anyway, thank you. I don't have anything substantive to offer right now, but I'm grateful that Kristen Gasparani has returned to offer her very nuanced and, to my mind, intelligent approach to all of this. And just so happy to be here with all of you in this challenging navigation of all that's taking place. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Jane.
Thanks, Jane.
JB.
I'm good. Thank you all.
Thanks, JB. Back to Craig.
Oh, geez, I did it again. Hold on.
No, you got it.
Hey,
You're there.
Good.
God,
Don't touch.
I look at other windows while I'm listening, and then I can't find the
I
original
know the
one.
pain, yeah.
All I would just throw out the our teleconference again. Come and see John Olson, and probably in our discussion phase, we might even talk about the AE situation. Who knows? We'll leave that for we'll leave that bit of excitement unclear, but certainly John will be speaking about the topic he mentioned earlier. So we hope people can come and join us. 911teleconference.substack.com if you want to get the agenda, which I'm going to probably send out tonight.
Very good. Since you mentioned John, I'll just go to John real quick. Anything for the group, John, wrapping up?
Yes, earlier they asked to show up my book, the full title, Liberate Hawaii, Renouncing and Defying the Continuing Fraudulent U.S. Claim to the Sovereignty of Hawaii. And I will back that up with conclusive documentation from Hawaiian sources that I studied for years. And I hope to have you join us and ask questions if you have any questions about that.
Nice.
And we can follow up later as desired. And I'll get that info to Craig that he asked shortly. Oh, you got it there. There it is on the screen.
Yep.
Okay.
If anybody is interested, HawaiiTheBook.com. Liberate HawaiiTheBook.com.
Yeah, when you left to go get the book, Gene had already pulled it up on the screen and he was sharing it while you were not in front of your screen.
Very good.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, thank you very much.
Let's go to Richard.
Hi, everybody. I don't have anything to add, but I certainly enjoyed the conversation today. And I appreciated the comments that both Craig and Jean and Sandra made about AE. And it's a tragedy that I'm keeping in my heart. And I hope for the best. There's who knows what good can come out of this. So let's all keep AE in our hearts and say our prayers and think good thoughts.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Mike Zarzano. Zorro.
Mike Czar.
Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Gene. Tuesday night Tap Talk, I would like to let everyone know we're going to have a couple topics, but it's mostly going to be an open forum. So bring your ideas, your discussions, and it should be very exciting. But we're going to kind of incorporate the COVID freedom movement along with the 9/11 curriculum that is being forced in 15 states. We're going to develop and elaborate on both of those. But in the middle of that, we'll have an open debate. So open forum. Look forward to everyone. 8 o'clock, truthactionproject.org. Register on the events page for the Zoom credentials. Hope to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. The one, the only Magnus from Norway. Anything for the group?
Hey, thank you. Great to see you, Sandra and Jean. And it was also awesome for you that you invited Kristen here because she was 2 times on Boston and did it very great there. And I'm also crossing fingers for AE because that's very important too. And happy birthday to Michael. That's very cool too, that everybody here have a chance to, not everybody actually, but a few of us have actually had a birthday here in the war room. That's actually amazing too.
Right on.
So keep up the great work, everybody, and see you next time. Thank you, Jean and Sandra.
Thanks, Magnus. Good to see you.
Great.
The real McCoy, Roy McCoy.
Hi, I have three things real quick.
Mhm.
I'd like to ask you and Sandra to monitor the microphones maybe a little closer because JB in particular popped up like 20 times during this call. It's kind of distracted. He's not saying anything. He's just got his mic turned on and it's picking him up and putting his video on. I think you can mute people if they're not talking,
Yep.
and you might want to do that.
Thank you.
The second thing is a very quick thing about AE. Of course, there's a lot to be said, but Craig said something about he and Andy were producing the content, which I'm sure is true. But when he said that, and thereafter, all I could think of, what about the 3,600 architects and engineers? It's supposed to be an organization of architects and engineers. Why shouldn't they be participating and producing content? That's all. Okay, that's what I have to say there. And finally, the last thing, and probably the most positive and significant thing is I want to ask Sandra if she said something like maybe Candace Owens will say something about 9/11, or maybe Candace Owens will talk about 9/11. My question is, have you not seen Candace Owens talking about 9/11?
Yeah, we have. Obviously, we've pulled out every single little comment and clip she's ever made. She did one focus on 9/11 that was a little bit more elaborate, and it focused on the whole, the basically the Jewish connections, the Otigo communication system, and how many Jewish people were not killed that day. And she did, that was her focus. She has mentioned 7, but to go full bore into 9/11,
Full truther.
yeah, full truther, she hasn't done that.
Well, you're not going full bore into 9/11 truth either, as I have commented various times, and I don't like the Building 7 exclusive emphasis, and I'm not going to go into that. But what I saw of Candace, though, is she was talking quite a bit about Building 7. She went kind of through the whole thing. So maybe you didn't see that one, or maybe you didn't have the same impression of it as I did. Anyway, I was just wanted to say Candace Owens looks to me like a truther.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He is. There's
Sure.
no question about it. She just hasn't never put it front and center. So, I mean, in all fairness, what got her to being the top podcast right now is a combination of the Macron thing and then mostly the Charlie Kirk thing since September. I mean, she's done unbelievable work in that aspect, and with the help of all, the online detectives and sleuths who are helping and finding her information. But I mean, it's been incredible development, and yeah, I would love it when she has a chance to really go full.
I've sent her a couple messages like, as soon as this passes with Macron and Charlie Kirk, if you could get back to 9/11, that'd be great. So
yeah,
we'll see. But thank you for
Can I make a real quick comment just about what Roy said very quickly, like one sentence?
Hang on, let me get to the end though, because I don't want to go with it then. But yeah, hang on.
Fine. Yeah, okay, sure.
David, anything for the group wrapping up?
Me, David D.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you, and Sandra. Good to see everyone. I was a late arrival. Apologies for that, but good to hear. Glad to hear what I heard. I was inspired to see Kristen on. I've heard her before, and I'm not sure where, but the visual and her message came back. I'm glad to see youth engaged in any movement, and 9/11 in particular. So I'll say thank you for all that, and look forward to next week and onward.
Thank you, David. Thanks for being here. Benjamin, anything for the group?
Yeah, 3 points. Point 1, I think if AE 9/11 Truth has a future, it will be very along the lines of project due diligence, architects and engineers talking to architects and engineers. That's why I enjoyed it, especially in the early days. And that's, if we have a critical mass of architects and engineers, I know it's an uphill struggle even just to get your foot in the door, but that's where I think a future could be. Point 2, there's a book I'm putting in the chat. It's called Crucial Conversations. It's not conspiracy related. It's just really amazing psychological tools to deal with hot button issues. And I found it invaluable just talking about anything, political or otherwise. I learned a lot about just human psychology reading it, and it prevents you from wasting time talking to people who are putting up barriers. You systematically identify those barriers and actually convey the message from one mind to another. It's really effective.
Nice.
The third point I wanted to add was, if anybody happens to know how I can access the AE 9/11 Truth documentary, 30 Seconds of Silence, which features John Cole and was created by Dylan Avery. Every link that exists for it doesn't work. The main site that's supposed to host it and that you're supposed to buy it from doesn't work. And I've tried everything from Wayback Machine to who knows what, and it's just completely inaccessible. So
It's on it's on Ben. It's on John Cole's website. Excuse me, his YouTube channel. His YouTube channel is called Physics and Reason, all one word. Physics and Reason.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Oh, hang on one sec, because I just got to look this up then.
So I did a special on it about a month ago, so you'll find it on our website too, richardgage911.org.
You're not talking the last 30 seconds. He said 30 seconds of silence.
I'm talking about 30 seconds of silence. Good point,
Oh.
Gene.
This is John's site, and
No, I'm talking about the last 30 seconds.
oh, okay. So we're still looking for.
Well, you can't do a search for the title of that one.
Maybe it's on here. Let me look.
Physics and Reason, the 36 seconds of. Yeah.
See if silence.
Which one was on the AE website? One of them was on there. I don't know if it still works, the link or not, but it was on the AE 9/11 Truth.
Yeah, it has its own poster too. I'll try to find the poster and put it into the chat.
All right,
It's just funny when you said you couldn't find it. I'm chuckling to myself because Gene can find.
I will find.
We know all the bags of tricks.
But I appreciate you looking through Wayback and everything too.
Yeah.
Is there a way to get hold of you, Benjamin, if I find it?
I have his email.
Oh, you do. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. Go to owner. I think is Al.
No, Al's separate.
Sometimes he has two. Is it
Oh.
owner somebody different? Whoever owner is, if you want to make a comment, go ahead. I'll watch for you coming off mic. Next, we'll go to Chuck. Anything for the?
Hey, peace out, everyone. Have
Thank
a
you,
great
Chuck.
week.
You too. Karl, anything for the group wrapping up?
Yes, Gene, just your comment about self-promotion. The reason I went into some depth about my connection with Tucker Carlson was because I got the clear impression from Sandra that you all were like in communication, that you had prompted or your emails had caused him to take the step that he has, which that's why I wanted to make it clear. I had a basis for asking for that contact information if you had it. And that's directly related to last week. I asked if Richard would please share his Brett Weinstein contact information, because I was, of course, canceled on Brett Weinstein by Senator Johnson, as well as on the Corbett report, because in my interview with Johnson's committee, I touched on issues related to Israel, Zionism, false flag terrorism, which were enough to have his staff, cut me off from his utility. So actually, to follow up on that, Richard, you said you would think about it last week. Are you willing to pass on Brett Weinstein's contact info?
No, I'm not going to do that, Karl. Thanks for asking.
Thank you for actually answering that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I appreciate the answer. Jetty, anything for the group wrapping up?
Yeah, just I haven't read Sandra's article yet, but I certainly agree with the gist of it. And if you look at the anonymous piece that architects and engineers put out, and it's anonymous, it says in there that Richard would be opening himself up to lawsuits if he turned it into an LLC. That's an implicit threat, and that's a very serious thing to say on a forum that guy started with. I disagree with Richard on many things. On this, I agree with him totally. To say that he would be opening himself up to the vulnerability of prosecution if this was made an LLC rather than a whatever it is chapter, whatever it is a very, very serious thing to put on a public forum, and that's actually actionable, Richard. And I disagree with you on many things, but on this, you're right. And I think that was the longest suicide note in history to that article there that they put out. Yeah,
That's a
thank you.
All right, and thank you,
Thanks,
Jay. And sorry, the link I just posted about 30 Seconds of Silence, it's an interview about 30 Seconds of Silence. I'm finding the same thing you are. Vimeo, everywhere it's gone. We'll find it.
Well, wouldn't John Cole have it?
Yeah, we'll check there too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jetty. Let's go to Jack. If you're there, Jack. He's finding the mute button. He's almost there. No, he's asleep. Did I get everybody? I know I wanted to come back to Craig, but Magnus, you got your hand up. Magnus, what do you got?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we have 41% of the funding of the Campbell case, and we are almost halfway. So I'm about to donate here. So I think we are gonna make it. I'm crossing my fingers. Thank you.
Thank you, Magnus. Yes, we are 41% there. Please, if you guys can, I'll send the link. But if you go to ic911.org's website, you can donate. Anything helps. There's $5, $1 for a luck. Just anything. Help if you can, because this family deserves that for sure. So, thank you. Let's go back to Jack.
Yeah, I didn't fall asleep. It was just my button wasn't working.
All good. Yep.
I had some things to say, but Kristen and Gina covered them, so now I don't have anything to say. But thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Good to hear. Good to see you. And Craig.
Just one point to Jerry. The statement that was released was not anonymous. It was from the board of AE, which is right now only 2 people. So it's from those 2 people. So it's not anonymous. Kamal Obaid and Kelly David are the board right now. So they are the ones, whoever wrote it. I don't know who actually physically wrote it, but okay, don't ask me questions about it, Jerry. I'm not even there anymore. Okay. We know who they are. We know who the board is. Okay. Now, apart from that, I just wanted to go back to I just want to mention again the you know that I don't know why I wanted to mention this, but the Roland Angle book is all about engineering, and it's all about the engineering community, and that's what I'm working on with Nikki, his widow. So people think that engineering has been tossed aside. It hasn't. I hope that book's called Engineering the 9/11 Cover-Up, and I hope when we can get it printed and everything, everybody will get behind it. And the final thing I'll just say quick is to Roy. The 3,600 architects and engineers they're petition signers. Most I would think are probably not interested in writing and going in, spending a lot of time doing articles. But we certainly have seen many of them interviewed on, over the years at AE, John Schuler, Kamal's, and Richard and other people. So that's kind of the way they've been heard. And there's certainly, if anybody had an article they wanted to propose, I'm sure that would have been used. So it's there's certainly no desire to leave the professionals out of it. In fact, honestly, while I was there, we would have been thrilled if engineers and architects had said, "Hey, I'd like to write something." I think Andy Steele would have been thrilled to bits. So anyway, that's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Craig.
Thanks, guys. Did I get everybody in the room? I think I did.
And 9/11 crimes in the courtroom.
All right, a crime scene to courtroom. Yep, he's working on episode 5. Sandra,
one last happy birthday to Mike Cook. One last happy birthday to Mike Cook, and I have probably the birthdays of half the people on this call. But if you care to share your birthday with me, I will always
forget.
I'll never forget. I'll wish you a happy birthday when the time comes, or in the Sunday preceding the week.
Yep.
So feel free to send an email with your birthday. And it has nothing to do with me having done astrology for the last 40 years of my life.
Run your numbers, yeah.
I'm not going to run any numbers, but it is a natural question that I gravitate towards.
Yep. All right.
On a voluntary basis.
My birthday wish is go Bengals, boo Steelers.
No, right. You're kicking them out of here. No, just kidding. The only thing I have left, this is kind of funny because I'm looking for 9/11 articles and this popped up. It has nothing to do with 9/11, but it mentioned 9 to 11. So here's my send off for you guys. When should you have your coffee? Between 6:30 to 8 or 9 to 11 for better focus and staying alert? It says here between 9 and 11 a.m. Cortisol levels naturally dip. Dr. Mule said this is when your brain becomes more sensitive to caffeine. A cup during this time provides steadier energy, sharper focus, and better productivity without disrupting your natural alertness cycle. It also prevents the early afternoon slump many people experience when drinking coffee too early. So
The remedy to that is more coffee.
Yep. Anyways, so,
Just so that you have an appreciation for the stuff he has to go through when he prepares for the show and he does searches for 9/11.
you search for them, you get baseball score,
You get all kinds of stuff.
everything.
He weeds
Yeah.
a lot of stuff to get the relevant ones.
But anyways, hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving. Have a good evening, a great week, and we'll all talk next time.
We will. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.